Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Don Odells Legends. My name is Art Tipaldii. I'm the editor at Blues Music Magazine. You can check us out online at bluesmusicmagazine.com, or you can check us out on Facebook, or for the last year, we've been available at Barnes & Noble and Books A Million, so if you're interested in seeing what we're about, check us out there. Tonight, we have one-third of the triumvirate that was the Blues Music Award winner last year for Acoustic Album of the Year. That was Joe Louis Walker on guitar, Bruce Katz on piano, and Giles Robson on harmonica. Congratulations, Giles.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
How does that feel?
Wow.
Your first foray into America and the blues scene, and you win a Blues Music Award.
It was incredible, you know, and I'll remember the ceremony and the feeling that I had backstage when it was announced for the rest of my life.
Oh yeah.
And we did a bit of I did a bit of breakfast TV on CBS with Joe.
Oh, cool.
And we got recognised around the town. It
Yeah.
was just a magical experience.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think what was so great about it was the album, the purity of the album. It was really celebrating, you know, old blues tracks, putting a bit of a fresh coat of paint on them.
Right.
We weren't too precious with them,
Right,
but celebrating the tracks, not only for their musicality, but for their amazing lyrics as well.
Right, yeah. Well, that's the tightrope, I think, that a performer walks, is how to celebrate the traditional music, but yet bring it up to this millennium.
Exactly, yeah.
What were some of those challenges? How do you do something like
It's
that?
it's been something that I've sort of thought about a lot over the last 10 years, and I've made Journeys to the Heart of the Blues was the fourth album that I've made, and I made 3 albums before then. Two of them were trying to experiment with the blues and you know, add extra influences.
Right.
And then the third one, I went back to the tradition. And then the last 3 have been more towards the tradition, because what I realized was that people love the blues sort of templates, the
Right.
formats, the 12 bars.
Yeah, yeah.
And my big conclusion has been that you put a lot of tradition in there, and you just add a little dash of originality.
Right.
But try and not take it too far away.
Right, right.
Because people, musicians especially, can get, you know, they're superficially bored of some of those structures and think it's too simple for them, but actually the amount of feeling that it can generate and the effect that it still has on audiences. This year I played in 14 different countries across the world.
Wow.
And the reaction, whether you're in Moscow or whether you're in Shirley, Massachusetts, is the same.
Right.
The world over,
That's
basically,
right,
at the same bit. So it's an incredibly powerful, and magical music. And when you move too far away from it, you dilute that feeling, and that feeling is so valuable and precious that you've got to be. As you say, it's a sort of a balancing act.
Yeah, yeah. And you can't just make it traditional by writing traditional lyrics, but you also have to do you have to put some of yourself and your own influences into the music that's going with those lyrics.
Well, I've found, I mean, I'm 41 now, and the magical thing about the blues, you know, as you can see when you look at the lineup of festivals and so on, is that it's a music that will last you your whole life, and you can have a career when you're 70, 75, 80.
That's right.
And the beautiful thing about the music is that it grows with you.
Yeah.
You know, when you're 22 and you're playing blues, you haven't experienced anything that the lyrics have talked about. When you're 41, like I am, you've been through a lot of what the lyrics talk about.
Yeah.
And it's incredible because they're so precise.
Yeah.
And so you know, they're up there with the great literature of the world, because
That's right.
the great poetry, because they're so economical.
Yeah.
Precise and well written, but by people that you know largely couldn't read or write.
Exactly,
you know? And I think it's a miracle of art and human expression.
Right. Well, I was a high school English teacher.
Oh, wow.
I taught British Lit, I taught American Lit, and I taught African American literature. But I found a way to teach blues in my high school because of the poetry of the lyrics. And so I had high school kids studying those lyrics, you know, from Charlie Patton and Robert Johnson to Muddy Waters to Taj Mahal to Keb Mo, and just seeing how the lyrics, as you say, they're like a history lesson.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to learn something from the 1920s, history books will give you some of it, but American music, the blues, country, will give you some of that history that you don't get in the history books.
It's absolutely incredible, and it's something that I just with each passing year I have more respect for.
Right, right.
And try and really, you know, when I write my original numbers, try and draw from that poetry and that methodology.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know, put my own experiences in there and
that's right.
You know, just relish what the music has to offer.
Right.
For an artist. It's incredible.
Yeah. And you know what you said about the effect of it in these 14 countries you've traveled. If you're putting your own experiences that you've had recently in this contemporary world, that's going to touch those people in those countries.
Exactly, yeah.
Who've had the same experience, you know? And that's how this music, I guess, continues to evolve and stay fresh.
Yeah, that's right. You know, people pick up on it, and also musically. I mean, I do I love slow blues.
Oh yeah.
And I do just a traditional slow 12-bar blues in E. Now people would say, oh, that's boring, or it's a slow blues, you know. But the solo in there gets a round of applause every time, and I'm not doing anything majorly revolutionary with it, but I'm putting as much emotion in as I can.
Yeah.
And it just shows you the genius of people like Little Walter and Sonny Boy Williamson, and how, you know, how their music is still valid.
That's
you know?
right. That's right. Yeah,
it's incredible.
Yeah. Oh God, there's so many things I can talk about with what you just said. Is that Blues at Midnight? Is that the slow blues? The one that's on your CD?
Yeah, way past midnight.
Oh,
yeah.
wait. Oh, I mean that's that Little Walter Blue Midnight right there.
Yeah. Well, I just find I'm constantly knocked out with what Little Walter and Sonny Boy Williamson did with the harmonica.
Yeah.
Because it's, I mean, Little Walter especially, well, no, both of them are an amazing mixture of technical brilliance and emotional brilliance, you know, and soulfulness. And it, you know, it's a miraculous thing.
Right.
Because both were so tasteful and economical and you know, and Little Walter being so young as well. You know? It's just an incredible thing an incredible gift that they gave us as well. You know,
that's
that
right.
You've got that music to study and learn from on a daily basis. You know.
Sure. I know Billy Branch just did that CD, the tribute to Little Walter.
Yeah, wonderful CD.
That's a beautiful CD, and
yeah.
he updates a lot of the tunes on there. They're not all, you know, copycats of what Walter did.
Well, I'm really good friends with Billy and his wife Rosa, and I've had them over to tour in the UK, and they're coming over in January.
Oh,
and
cool.
The wonderful thing about Billy is that he's a very searching musician. He really, you know, he appreciates, he works with a lot of different genres of music as well. And I think that comes through in that wonderful record, you know. He's not constraining himself, he's being Billy Branch, but doing Little Walter, and he gives all of those songs a really fresh coat of paint. And the, sort of the Billy Branch treatment.
That's right.
And really he's the last in the line of the, you know, the great Chicago players. I mean, he was really respected by James Cotton and Junior Wells and Carey Bell.
That's right.
And he's got a great modern style that's soulful but suave as well at the same time.
Sure. So we were talking, and I introduced you as a part of the threesome that made that Blues Music Award. How does, and if people haven't picked this up yet, Giles is from England, the UK. How does a harmonica player from the UK who we didn't know about here in America, is that safe to say?
Yeah, very safe to say.
How does, who was probably 37 or 38 years old back then? How do you hook up with Joe Louis Walker and Bruce Katz, and did you hold a gun to their head? No.
Well, this is all to do with the wonderful country of Holland, the Netherlands. I mean, it's really, my career has been largely based in Holland. It's got an incredible blues scene, and I put my 2016 record, For Those Who Need the Blues, went out with V2 Records, and it did really well. And I was thinking about my next move, and I really wanted to do an acoustic album, but of traditional blues stuff. But I thought it'd be amazing to get a really great artist involved. And I met Joe at a blues festival in Amstelveen, in just outside of Amsterdam in Holland, and he'd heard of me, and we had a great chat. And then he said, "Come up." He was on after me, and he said, "Come up and jam." And we really got on musically. Then we talked for about 2 or 3 hours afterwards. And then I was listening to these acoustic albums when I was driving. You know, because I have long drives as you do in America to get to the gigs. And then the idea just came to me, And I was listening to, there's an overlooked Junior Wells album on Telart called Come On In This House.
Oh yeah,
sure. Where he's got a lot of guests, and I never used to like it. And then I really got into it. You know, I really suddenly understood it with the dynamics and everything. And so I emailed Joe. Joe was interested and suggested bringing Bruce Katz on board, and then V2 Records financed it. And V2 distribute Alligator in Holland, so we got in contact with Bruce. Bruce loved the record, put it out, and it was a wonderful success. You know.
Wow. Now you, how much of you was in the direction of that CD in terms of song choices, etc.?
Well, I tried to. I came up with the concept for it, and then I just tried to be as relaxed as possible and just let everything breathe. So Joe and Bruce came with songs, and I came with a few songs, and it was a really wonderful session. You know, set of rehearsals and a session, because it was it was so organic. I just tried to be, let everyone breathe, really. Right. And it was really magical, you know. Sure. And I think you can hear that on the record, you know, that it was such an organic, synergy between the three of us.
Looking back on that experience, I always like to ask performers, I'm into the passing of traditions, the passing down. What have you learned from Joe and Bruce?
Well, that's a really good question, because this was the first time because both Joe and Bruce are giants. They're giants of the music, and they just emit musicality. And I guess there were two aspects. Firstly, the stories. Oh God! Because I just sat back and just listened to Joe and Bruce talk, exchange stories, and that gave my knowledge a lot more depth. And secondly, just being in the studio with two such experienced, musicians that are experienced in recording in the studio was incredible. And it's sort of, it's improved my studio game tenfold. And I think that my new album, wouldn't have been nearly as successful, executed so successfully, if I hadn't done the album with the Journeys to the Heart of the Blues, because I just learned so much, by just being in there with them and their approach to recording. So I feel incredibly privileged to have had that experience.
Sure. Did you experience what do they call it, red light fear or something, when
the
light goes on to record and you're in there with Joe and Bruce?
I've never really had that. Okay. But just watching the casual way that they sort of just brilliantly performed. And nonplussed. I just thought, I've just taken that with me.
That's great.
And obviously, I was humbled to be working with them.
Sure.
But I think I held my own, and the whole thing really came together beautifully. So it's sort of like, I'm proud to have that for the rest of my life as a record,
Yeah. You mentioned the stories, and I love the stories, and then you mentioned the studio. What did they teach you about the blues that maybe you didn't know?
I just think it was, I think it was more when they talked about artists and working with artists and touring and it just brought it to life, Yeah. And Joe is Joe is as is Bruce, is a multifaceted artist. He can handle many different genres. He's got 2 degrees. He's got a pin sharp memory. And it's incredible. But also this great soulful technique and touch on the guitar, and it was just it's those stories that can really bring things to light. And
that's right.
And some of them are not pleasant. I mean, it's a hard business, and it's a and it certainly was back in the day. Right. But it just really sort of brought everything to life and gave me a greater knowledge.
Yeah. Did you find your harmonica playing, because that's what you contributed to the album, did you find that it reached a level that hadn't been there before by playing with these two men? Yeah,
I think so. And what was not, I wasn't trying to rock it up. I was really trying to put as much soul in there as possible. And it was great to be, sort of, because the harp is the Otis Spann used to say the harp is the mother of the band. Yeah. Joe really loves harmonica. He plays it himself, and it was nice to be up there in sort of bracketing Joe's vocals and playing off Bruce's piano. I think there's a solo in the second track. It's You Baby, where I'm playing sort of Bruce and I have this sort of telepathy where I'm playing under his solo.
Oh, how cool!
And that was the sort of the spirit of the whole album.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. What an experience! Though.
Yeah. Really incredible.
And now you've got your new album, Don't Give Up on the Blues. I'll hold this up. You know, to me, the first album kind of is that down back country, back porch, you know, juke joint kind of thing. This, to me, is 1950s Chicago chess records.
Yeah.
Is that an appropriate take on this album?
And I think the great and several people have picked up on it is that it is it's playing within the tradition.
It is, yeah.
But it's slightly loose with it. So it's we've got a great guitarist who'll be on the filming tonight, Aaron Lieberman, who just brings a slight touch of a contemporary feel, as does the bass player Antar Goodwin. So you've got a sort of a combination of old and new. So it's slightly fresh. And that's what I was talking about earlier, just that little dash of originality.
Because I found a couple of the songs. It's well, this is not what I would have expected on a Chess Brothers record with the Muddy Waters Band, and then the next one would be, oh my God, this is perfect, but it's deeper than it's using the technology and whatever.
Yeah. That's what we were sort of after. I mean, as with Journeys to the Heart of the Blues, I didn't want to be too strict, and because sometimes I find that if a blues album goes down a resolutely traditional path, it can sound like it's like a fly trapped in amber. You know, it can sound a bit of a museum piece and a bit musty.
Sure.
So I think that I just was playing fast and loose with the rules, and also trying to write riffs as well, you know. So that there's some sort of earworms in there.
That's right.
But not taking it into different musical territories. There's still 12 bars.
Right. And you've got they're all originals on here.
They're all
too.
originals. Yeah.
Do you which would you say you work hardest at to master? Are you working harder at a harmonica, or vocals, or songwriting? I
don't know. It's all sort of one, really. I've been working a lot on my vocals over the last few years to try and find a happy space where I don't sound like like an Englishman trying to sound, sort of American. So I don't come over with a big southern drawl. And I like a lot of the English singers from the John Mayall, Mick Jagger. I think they did a really, I used to be a real, sort of blues purist in my teenage years, and it had to be American artists. And I've relaxed since then, and I think John Mayall and Mick Jagger did some, great. They had really convincing voices and didn't sound like a pastiche, So I've been listening to them a lot to try and get my vocals into a good place, which I think they are on this album.
Yeah, they are. That's right. Yeah. Have you found a sweet spot with your harmonica playing? Have you found a place where you can say, that's my voice, that's my style?
Yeah, I think.
Or are you still searching for that?
No, I think on this album, I mean, I'm always searching, and I'm always musically curious. What I can add. What I try and do is add the upper register to it.
Oh yeah.
And I think that gives it a bit more melodic interest and sort of like a counterpoint to some of the lower stuff.
Right.
But I'm always searching and always looking for new ways of playing and approaching it. But really it's that precious emotion that the instrument can bring across. And I always someone like Little Walter was such a miraculous musician in conveying emotion, and I was trying to figure it out, and what he was doing, because it is different to the Muddy sound, and it was like this poised melancholy that he had,
that's right.
On Key to the Highway, on Mean Old World, and so I'm always trying to get as much emotion in it as possible, and also and just have fun with it as well.
Now, when you say get as much emotion into it, is the placement of emotion through a harmonica different when you're playing electric versus acoustic? Do you find?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a completely different beast, and it's all about stretching out those notes, the placement of the notes, the rhythm of the notes. Because the harmonica is so. If you look at what Little Walter was listening to in the 50s, he was listening to all these sort of R&B horn players.
Right.
And that R&B horn stuff hasn't really aged particularly well, because they were sort of blasting it out and getting people to dance. And it's a little of it goes a long way. the great thing about the harmonica is that it's so tonally versatile that even if little Walter was copying these horn guys, but I mean, even on Duke, I mean, Duke's like a jaunty, jumpy sort of dance instrument, and yet it's still got this poised melancholy and this emotion, even though it's an upbeat number. So it's emotionally, the harmonica's got such a potential to convey, sort of quite complex emotions because of its tonal range.
Right. And how long did it take you to figure that out?
Well, I did two albums.
Yeah.
Crooked Heart of Mine and one called From the Basement that was just released in Holland. And I was trying to rock it up a bit and reach out to younger audiences. And I just the harmonicas, the moment you start putting it over straighter rhythms and rock and roll, it squeezes it.
Oh wow! Yeah.
You need it's a groove instrument.
Right.
It's a tonal instrument, and the moment it goes over straight rhythms, it sort of loses everything that's magical about it.
Right.
Because you're playing it straighter, so you lose the groove and you lose the dynamic.
Interesting.
And because you've not got the full chromatic scale on it, you're losing a lot of what makes it magical.
Right.
So if I ever did anything, out there again, it would definitely be, it looked more sort of like hip hop and grooves. To really stretch it out. But really, blues is my passion,
and it comes through.
Oh, thank you.
It comes through here, and it comes through on here.
Oh, thank you so. Well, it's a real. I'm just amazed. I'm amazed as the years go by just how communicative it is with people.
That's right. Yeah.
And it's a precious thing to you don't want to throw something that precious away.
Sure. Well, thanks so much once
My
again,
pleasure.
ladies and gentlemen. Our guest tonight, Giles Robson. Blues Music Award 2019 Blues Music Award winner, Acoustic Album of the Year with Joe Louis Walker and Bruce Katz. And tonight, the performance will have Bruce Katz and his band backing Giles. So thank you, Giles.
Thanks so much.
All right, man. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.